now let me go to Behice Boran. Now, Behice Boran is born 2 years after Niyazi Berkes. And while Niyazi Berkes is from Cyprus, from southern Turkey, Behice Boran's family is from north of Turkey. Her family was from Tatars, Tatar family, a Tatar family. So at that time, in Tataristan, there was a very much developed taught Turkish language studies, Turkish historical studies. So it seems Behice Boran's family was exposed to that literature, to that currents, social movements in Tataristan. So her family put Behice Boran into American College for Girls in Istanbul. And after graduating from that college, she went to University of Michigan, more or less in the same year with Niyazi Berkes. And she got her PhD from Michigan in 1939, the same year that Niyazi Berkes got his. And both of them returned to, one from University of Michigan, the other from University of Chicago, joined Ankara University Language, History and Geography faculty. Okay, now together with Boratov and Muzaffer Sherif, they established this Ankara School of Social Sciences, of Sociology. Behice Boran was editor of Yurt ve Dünya journal, Mother and the World, Motherland, Motherland, Anavatan, Motherland and World, and Adımlar journals, Steps. So she was dismissed from the university in 1946, court case, etc., etc. But in 1950, outside of university, he stayed in Turkey and he formed a Turkish Peace Lovers Association, Türkiye Barış Derneği, Barışseverler Derneği, and she opposed joining of to Korean War, which Turkish government at that time to show that they belong to the first world, joined Korean War. And as a matter of fact, my own brother, my older brother, I have two older brothers, the oldest one, in 1951, he went to Korean War and he fought in the front. Unfortunately, he was a Ghazi. He was a Korean Ghazi. He returned from there when I was 7 years old, or 6 years old. Yes. So that was my first expansion of my mind to Korea. There is our village, and then there is Korea far ahead, and there's China on the north side of Korea, and there is America way in the west, and they are fighting. And my brother, my Abe, is fighting there together with American soldiers, and they are listening every day. Anyway, this is the war and its impact onto my life. Now, in let's go back to Behice Boran. In 1965-69, she became politically active, and she served as a deputy milletvekili of TİP, Türkiye İşçi Partisi, Workers' Party of Turkey, in the parliament, in the Turkish parliament. And in 1970, she became the leader of the party. But then there was a military coup in 1971, and she was arrested. And then a few years later, there was an amnesty, and she got free. After she free, then she established Turkish Labour Party, or Workers' Party of Turkey, in 1975. And then there was another coup in 1980. So now she became an exile, and she went to Brussels, Düsseldorf, Sofia, and she died in 1987 in Brussels, Belgium. And later, his coffin, his body was brought yes, it was brought to Turkey. Okay, now her books. Now, as I mentioned already, she had a rural sociological study in Manisa villages, mountain villages, and plain villages, and she compared these two types of villages in terms of how organizational production. Now, mountain villages being more subsistence agriculture, whereas plain villages becoming more cash production for market. So while mountain villages did not experience much transformation, plain villages experienced transformation in terms of technology, economic relationships, in terms of exposure to urban influences from Manisa and from Izmir, and also from influences coming from Istanbul and from the world, as plain villages were integrated into Turkish society. So that was one of her emphasis in this book, which was called Social Structural Research in Two Types of Villages in a Comparative Structure. So her second book was about Turkey and questions of socialism. He also translated some novels, for example, John Steinbeck's book, a novel, Sardalya Sokağı. It was translated by her. Anyway, I will now leave that, and I will go to another article, by her, Behice Boran'a, which is published in the same journal that Niyazi Berkes published in 1936, American Journal of Sociology. You can see that too. I put that there. Now, while Niyazi Berkes talked about development of Ottoman and Turkish sociology, Behice Boran'a focuses on development of Western sociology and American sociology, and she criticizes how American sociology narrowed down into practical aspects of solving the problems of society, which is appreciated by her, but she does not find it enough. She proposes a broader framework she proposes that it is better to combine. It is better not only to follow Durkheim and Weber, which American sociology at that time, this is 30s and 40s, and Zimmel, they were following these three. She was saying that American sociology, if they American sociologists, if they also include Marx into their approach, that is, if it becomes Durkheim, Weber, and Marx, which, as you know, later is defended by Giddens, Bourdieu. As a matter of fact, contemporary sociology advocates that these three together, not only Weber and Durkheim, as Parsons proposed in 1937 his book Structure of Social Action, excluding Marx. So Behice Boran advocated in 1947, that is 25 years earlier than Anthony Giddens and Pierre Bourdieu, two contemporary sociologists, how it is better to combine three founders of sociology, which will not only provide a broader theoretical framework, but also a framework of concepts to carry out research in the cities, towns, villages, and societies. That is micro level as well as macro level studies can be combined in this type of an approach. So this was indeed it should be written to the side of Behice Boran, that she has seen this combination of three founders much earlier than others. And she finishes, she continues in this article, and she says that, for example, towards the end, all thought systems, including scientific thinking and explanation, start from some postulated general premises. Whether the postulates are valid or scientifically acceptable depends upon whether the conclusions deduced from them comply with observed facts, and whether the system of explanation of the facts offers us a basis for prediction and successful action. So she is actually proposing a kind of positivistic, along with actually Durkheim, and less with Weber, Durkheim and Marx, but less with Weber, as I said, because if she brought more strongly, if she brought Weber, she would have advised both positivistic quantitative studies and also qualitative studies of culture, which will be more along the line of Weber, which contemporary sociology does both quantitative and qualitative sociological methodology, and a theoretical framework that encompasses both. We can criticize that, but in 1947, this is 47, in her later work after 1947, she did some qualitative research. So if she had rewritten this article, she could have included some qualitative research. My introduction of her concepts I think this will be enough introduction to Behice Boran. So let me conclude this lecture by recapitulating, summarizing what I said from the beginning, that in 1939, these two sociologists, Niyazi Berkes, graduating from University of Chicago, and Behice Boran, obtaining her PhD from University of Michigan, came and joined sociology department of social sciences and humanities, a larger department in language, geography, and language, history, and geography faculty of Ankara University. And from 1939 to 1946, they did all these studies, and especially rural village studies. Niyazi Berkes, Ankara village studies, Behice Boran, Manisa village studies, both of which influenced my own work, actually, and Mübeccel Kray's work, as we will see the week after we have our midterm exam. Okay, and then in 1947, 48, there was a court case about them, and they were dismissed from the university together with Pertev Naili Boratov, Muzaffer Sherif, Boratov going and joining a university in Paris, and Pertev Naili Boratov going, yes, Pertev Naili Boratov going to Paris and joining a university there, and Muzaffer Sherif going to United States of America and establishing new departments of social psychology, actually founding social psychology and writing a textbook of social psychology, which became a classic, actually, a classic social psychology book that was read by many students of social psychology in America and throughout the world. For example, when I was taking social psychology course in Middle East Technical University, I used Muzaffer Sherif's textbook, this social psychology, an outline of social psychology. That was the title of the book. Anyway, the four were formative in establishing Ankara School of Social Sciences and Sociology, and it became actually a rival, a competitor to Istanbul University Sociology, as we will discuss. Istanbul University, as we have already discussed with Ziya Gökalp, Prince Sabahattin, Hilmi Ziya Ülkan, Fahrettin Ziya, Fındıkoğlu. Now, Istanbul School focuses more on culture and identity, how we should keep our identity, our Turkish and Muslim identity, and they put that into the core. Whereas Ankara School focus more on social structural aspects. They say that in order to keep our identity, our social existence as a society, we have to transform our economic structures, political structures, our modes of production of goods and of services. So we need structural transformation. So one school emphasizes structural transformations and then goes into culture and identity problems, cultural identity problems. The other one starts with Istanbul one, Istanbul school, starts with cultural identity, religious identity problems, and then goes into the study of social structure. Now, later generations try to bridge these two, as we will see later. In Ankara, in addition to Vivecel Kray in METÜ, Sherif Mardin in Ankara University, this time in the Faculty of Political Science, they became two complementary, two competing schools. Sherif Mardin more emphasizing cultural aspects, Vivecel Kray emphasizing structural aspects. But both of them became my professors in Middle East Technical University. In Istanbul, as I mentioned, there was a school, a sub-school of Istanbul, one in Faculty of Literature, Edebiyat Fakültesi, the other in Faculty of Economics, İktisat Fakültesi, Fındıkoğlu and İlmi Ziya Ülken. They are from these two faculties, and they have comparatively different approaches to sociology. So, as you will see, and as I already discussed with you in the second week in my article, Sociological Research in Turkey, compartmentalization first, compartmentalized into these four different schools and more schools, perhaps. Are they communicating with each other, not communicating? Now, when I used the concept of compartmentalization, I was emphasizing that they don't talk with each other much. There is not much dialogue at that period. Now, this is 40s, 50s, but in 60s, there started a dialogue, and in 70s and 80s, this dialogue increased, and so from compartmentalization to differentiation and proliferation. So different schools throughout Turkey, different sociology departments, now they are differentiated and specialized in various branches of sociology and with different theoretical emphases. So there is a pluralization and or proliferation. I used the word proliferation. Proliferation, the concept of proliferation, comes from a methodological debate between Popper and Feyerabend. Feyerabend is for proliferation, whereas Popper is more a positivistic, critical, hypothetical-deductive approach, whereas Feyerabend more pluralistic and proliferation. So I applied this epistemological, methodological debate to the debate in Turkish sociology. Although they did not openly debated with each other, but there was a debate. I perceived that debate, and I wrote that in the introduction, in the 60-page introduction of my book when I was a third-year student, this underdeveloped capitalism and its penetration into Turkish villages. I tried to combine these two schools,